would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For emergency issues only, is there any school committee members' additions to the agenda? Is there any public comment regarding items on the agenda? Is there anybody on? No. Okay. No student council, no special awards, consent items. Is there any consent item that anybody would like to remove? Hearing none, is there a motion about the consent items?
Motion to approve the consent items.
Made by Ruby,
Second.
seconded by Amy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Unfinished business.
Could I just ask a question on the warrants? Are we all set with the warrant being signed by 3 people now?
Yeah, it's signed by 3 people?
I don't know, I signed first.
Mika?
I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing, right? 3 people?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
Let's make
you
sure.
say me, were any of these supposed to be signed by?
No.
No,
These
not
are
this
tabled.
week. I thought it was you, me, no,
Mika.
it's Mika. Okay, yes,
Okay.
okay, all right, just checking.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So I guess if Mika's not back, maybe Angela should send it to these two, too.
Okay.
Does it still go to everybody? Or just,
I get things sometimes, but I don't think I get all of them.
I can sometimes. I could check and see if I get all of them.
Okay,
And
well,
I'll-
if for some reason Mika's not here and doesn't sign it, I'll text you two and be like, somebody go sign it.
okay.
Okay,
I'll double check with Angela.
okay. All right, moving on, Cold Spring School closure.
So I just want to provide you with an update that we met twice, a listening session with parents. One occurred for Cold Springs moving to Swift River. We had about 15 people show up, some staff, some parents. Some good questions. We're compiling all the questions. We're going to put them in a Q&A and put them on the website, and also I'll do a presentation like I did for the staff of that. Then we went over to Jabish, and it was Ms. Champagne joined us with Mr. Ruscio, Dr. Fortin, Heather was there, and there was a larger crowd there, about 30, what do you think, 30 people? Great questions. People seem to appreciate being able to give some feedback, and understood too that we're still in the process of putting things together. So we want to wrap up where we can get some of the information out by March, mid-March, on what we have. We have been doing a lot of work around scheduling at Jabish. We are beginning behind-the-scenes scheduling of specialists at Swift River, Chestnut Hill, and Jabish. Monday, we were supposed to meet with Swift River parents that were coming to Chestnut Hill. We will have to reschedule that. So I will reschedule that and provide you an update. There is a lot of behind-the-scenes things happening. Eric is in communication with Eric Duda from Pathfinder, their plumbing department, to start working on our toilets for the preschool and lowering those toilets for us. So we're in the process of doing that. Neil is in the process of ensuring that technology will be uploaded in each of the classrooms and the reassignments. So we are definitely continuing to move. Eric has also been working with the capital improvement plan from the town, and from what I understand is the Jabish Brook parking is at the top of the list. So hopefully we'll get some help there. I think I think there were some great questions about Jabish and the way 6th grade was going to work, and 7th and 8th. You know, they brought up recess as well, 6th grade, teaming. So we have a plan, we're just finalizing it before we put it out. I forgot to mention, and I don't know that I mentioned, but I know we talked about this, but with the reorganization, there is not gonna be any foreign language at JBISH. We had talked about, yeah, we had talked about it, but I just wanted to be upfront too, that because we got rid of French, because we couldn't find a French teacher for so long, and then Spanish, and we couldn't find a Spanish teacher for so long, and then we moved one to the high school, and we are going to move that back so they can focus on the high school. There were some concerns about the dual language, biliteracy. You know, we probably won't have as many students doing it, but certainly there's still the opportunity to do that. We will work with the high school. So we're still kind of working all those things out right now. But once I meet with the parents, I will give you an update on the feedback from them. And then I will have a timeline of certain events that will occur from March on to the rest of the year.
Was there anything you heard in listening session that surprised you?
It didn't surprise me, but I think that the two things that stick out with me in all of this, and not a bad thing, was the playscape at Cold Springs was a big, you know, like we gotta move that up there and this and that. And sixth grade recess going to JBISH. Now, JBISH certainly has, you know, their recess is a little bit different. It's more of hanging out for 10, 15 minutes. It's not like Swift River, Chestnut Hill. So we're trying to look, how do we mesh the two, you know, make the transition. But I mean, there's a lot of great questions out there that parents are bringing up, staff are bringing up. I do believe, and certainly Sean or Heather and whomever else was there, I feel like people are being supportive of this, and are looking forward to it, but also a little nervous, you know, but I think people are, would you?
Yeah, I think most of the parents had concerns with the sixth graders and how they were gonna, like, if we had school dances, like having those sixth graders with older students, so they had, because of the maturity level, but.
And I asked the crowd, I said, what are your feelings on that? We got a lot of thumbs up, and then we got some thumbs down, you know, so Tom.
It'll take a while.
Yeah, it's just, it feels like it's, as somebody who was going to have something in sixth grade.
Yeah.
Where I grew up, it was fifth grade had school dances together. So like, I'm used to that, but people
Right.
here aren't used to it. So
Correct.
it's just gonna take time to make that transition.
And that's what Tom said. He said, you know what, maybe we start with just sixth grade, and then sixth grade, seventh, and then sixth, seventh, and eighth, you know, we do it. So, there was one kid in front, when we were talking about 6 periods versus 7 periods, and his dad said, oh, you may have to move 7 times, and his eyes just kind of like bugged out, like, oh my God, 7 times. But that may not be the case for 6th graders and stuff of that nature, so.
Certainly not the first year while they're.
Right, so.
Have you looked into actually moving the playground at Cold Spring? Like, that's really expensive.
So, I'm gonna call my friend over at Pathfinder,
Okay.
see how maybe his horticulture thing, he's probably gonna, I'll say, what is he saying right now? But I'm gonna see what our options are. It is cemented in. The one at Swift River needs to be taken down. It's just not in good shape. You know, but before we make any final decisions, we're just gonna evaluate.
I just
everything.
remember the cost of moving the little tiny day school.
Yes. And Jill and Magda have begun working together on drop-offs and arrivals and all of that, so we have that collaboration as well. And I think people, one thing that keeps coming up that I hear people say is, we appreciate that they're not going to have to move schools after 1 or 2 years. Meaning, if you're in kindergarten, you don't have to move to a new school. Like, you're gonna be able to be K1, 2. So you're gonna be part of that community. And same with pre-K. You could be in that school for 5 years, you know? So that was one of the things. So
That's good.
so I will continue to give you an update on that.
Questions or comments from the committee? No. Thank you, this is definitely not easy, and I'm glad we're taking the time to do this one. All right, budget update.
So Heidi Ruby
Yep.
attended a meeting on February 9th about the select board. We were also asked to present the school budget at that time informally, because we weren't aware that we were presenting. So we presented the budget that I presented to you. We went over it. And basically, we got some information from the town. And I'm not sure, did everybody receive this? I do have some extra copies. Yes, you,
I received it, I don't have it.
1, 2. I don't know, Jake, did you get one in the last one? Well, I emailed this to you guys, Ruby has one, but if you guys want to share, and we can look on, so that was the information that we got from the town that night. And basically, they said that we, as a school district, were going to have to cut $215,000 and some change, and the town was going to have to do $198,000. I think all of us felt that this was a reasonable request compared to some of the last. I do think too that in the presentation that the school presented, we also, in the closing of Cold Spring, in the reorganization, have saved $937,000 that we're not asking for. We walked away with saying, okay, we can cut the 215. I'm not too concerned about the 215 right now because things change. There'll be some other things coming your way tonight that might affect that. But there were some and Heidi and Ruby, jump in at any time. There was some conversation about the policy about the 60-40 split, about the free cash, utilization?
Free cash.
Free cash. And Steve and Jill recommended we do 50-50. We keep it at 50-50 because of health insurance. But there was one member that asked that they do the analysis for 60-40 as well. So that was kind of the update from that meeting.
So I think there was a couple of things that Jake and we talked about this. We didn't have quorum, so I didn't necessarily say much. But they asked, they're like, well, is the state doing anything to help out schools? Like, we know this is awful. And they didn't recognize or realize that the state had increased our per pupil spend in our chapter 70. And I didn't say that there because we weren't in quorum. But I think that's something that I would like to point out in our tribal meeting. Like, yes, the state is doing something. They're actually increasing our funding. They didn't necessarily increase it to us because they've given us above anyway, but I think that that's important to say.
I think they probably don't realize we're a hold harmless school, but almost 7% of schools in Massachusetts are hold harmless.
Right, I think they sort of know this, but they don't, I don't think they necessarily care because they know they give us above it and don't really, like, I don't know. I don't think that that's a priority of theirs, but they specifically asked, somebody asked, well, is the state doing anything about, the budget formula? And they did increase our purchasable amount. So that's what that is. And I also have spent a lot of time thinking about this. And in my years on the committee, right, like in the beginning, I felt like where they were cutting us was not necessarily a big amount, like this year. Like it was something manageable, it's something we could do it. And every year it gets worse and worse and worse. And we did this override to get us back to ground zero, but now we're starting with the decrease again. And like, there's nothing we can necessarily do about it, but I know it's because the town just doesn't have the tax revenue to deal with all the increases that we deal with here. And I don't have a solution for that. I just know this year is, yeah, not so bad, but then I know next year's gonna be a little worse. And it's gonna keep getting worse until we get to where we were 2 years ago.
That's the nature of Prop 2.5. When inflation is more than 2.5%, we will always be eventually where we were last year.
I think that we will always be it anyway, so.
And like, most towns know that they're gonna have a tipping point where they either override or they do massive, massive cuts.
And I think too that, you know, we had mentioned this, I don't know if it's gonna get any traction, but if we keep going back to the old ways where, you know, percentage of the town is larger than the schools, we're gonna start to see, you know, that discrepancy. We had proposed or wanted to look into an equitable split in percentages. So if the town got 2%, we would get 2%. Over the years, you know, if the town has received a higher percentage than the schools, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that if we go back to that behavior, will we end up in the same place? I don't know the answer to that. I'm just saying that we had an article about Amherst, they all get the same percentage. There's no fighting, there's no this, that. I don't know if it's something that, you know.
Everybody sinks or swims together at the same time. Fire department, police department, school department.
So,
I think that's something we should definitely bring up with the tribal board and just where that is.
Similarly, that free cash 60/40, 50/50, in a high inflation time period, it may make sense. I know there was a previous agreement, acknowledge that. It may make sense to say, doing this as fast as originally planned during such high inflation really cuts into everyone's budget dramatically. And there may be a more prudent fiscal approach that slows that down. Instead of 20% every single year, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 5, so that they get where they want to go, but they don't cut so deeply that it's, as we used kind of last year, the bone as opposed to the fat.
Yeah. So I don't believe they made a tri board meeting, but they put out a poll. Did you fill out the poll? Okay, perfect. We'll see what's there. All right, anything else about that?
and I just want to remind people of this. They gave us another year to plan, you know, but we eliminated another 15 positions. You know, so we're continuously cutting positions, you know.
So I think it's very difficult. Remember when finance said, well, your students have dropped 60%, and that's not completely true.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to like rationale this when all the information isn't necessarily correct.
Right. I mean, it's like the census data, you know. I think, you know, the census data says we have 67 6-year-olds in the town. Well, that's not true because 150 walk through our doors every day.
And at the same time, even if it's 100 kids a year of enrollment shrinking, that's not enough to eliminate teachers spread across 12 grades.
Right.
But we are eliminating, like, as we go,
Right.
There's moments where you can justifiably say we can shrink these positions, but it takes a while to get there.
Right.
And we just did it in a big way. The town needs to be ready for that to not happen for a while.
Right.
Unless there was some sudden dramatic enrollment shrinking.
And I think Ben, not to call Ben out, but Ben did, we did the MSBA enrollment and we did Ben enrollment. And one included birth rates or something, one didn't, but it's been pretty equal on where we're at. And to say that, I'm just saying it's one data point, but it doesn't hit what's walking in our doors every day. Because we have 150 6-year-olds coming in. So I think we just have to be aware of what we use too.
I don't know how to correct it, but every time somebody official says something that's wrong, it comes back to haunt us for years. So I just think that's something to be mindful of. All right, any other discussion?
Nope.
All right, moving on to our superintendent's goals.
So there's a lot of information in here. This is just the mid-year. Certainly you can look at it, provide feedback next year. You can ask me questions. So in the drive, or if you printed it out, it's in red. I always do it in red. The February progress update on the first one about increasing the percentage of student demonstrating annual literacy growth from the beginning of the year to, you see the links in there. I put DIBEL scores, I put iReady scores. You can certainly review those. In collaboration with the assistant superintendent and building administrators, we coordinating leadership efforts that have strengthened alignment, mentoring, and implementation across schools. This shared leadership structure has ensured that instructional priorities, professional development, and data review process remain tightly connected to the district's literacy improvement goal. We meet about every other week just to go over data from the schools, from the district, benchmarks. We've done the benchmarks, the DIBELs, K-5. As you go down, you see the structured early literacy, grades K-2, implementation of structured early literacy instructions in grade K. If you click on K, you'll see evidence of that. Continues to move forward with Fidelity. A big initiative this year was the SRSD, which was the writing. Everybody's doing that pre-K to 12th grade, while K-2 is focusing on ECRI. At the same time, they are also focusing on aspects of the Think SRSD, which 6th grade did a couple of years ago with JVISH and really made a difference in their MCAS scores and reevaluated it. It wasn't only what they're using as this SRSD, but it was also taking the time to really work as a team and get high-level instructional products from students and what they were, scored them across the team, and then they use that as their baseline. That's the vertical line, writing initiatives, grades 3 to 12. You click on the Think SRSD there, you'll see some examples regarding that. A lot of the evidence in this goal is in the PD, the earlier release, with those links. So when you go through that, you will see that, and it will be there. We have really been focusing on strengthening writing across the district. That's as early as kindergarten up to 12th grade. We have done some district-wide writing assessments in grades 3 to 12. We get planning time for that. We have the beginning in mid-year iReady ELA benchmarks for grade 6. All of that is located in this as well. And just to reassure you, you're going to see in my data collection here that I supply some examples from the schools. The schools are going to come present their mid-year data as well. The ongoing monitoring next steps, a lot of this one focused on pre-K to 8 in the early literacy with ECRI at the pre-K to 2, the iReady, but we also looked at MCAS, and I put Common Lit in there because the high school is also doing their Common Lit assessments. So I wanted to put some documentation in there that that's happening and is ongoing. We are currently implementing milestones, leadership, collaboration, and early data trends indicating the work toward the June 2026 literacy growth goal we believe remains on track. That all ties into our one-year action plans that are there and the 2025 MCAS presentation. I put that there because we want to tie it all together, and we're hoping that our iReady scores will be an indicator of MCAS, and then we can kind of do all of that. I could certainly go through every piece of evidence if you wanted me to, but I have no problem either if you want to dissect it a little bit. I think questions on that.
Just, did you get to the bottom of why that 7th grade score looked incorrect?
The 7th grade.
On, I think it was math.
Oh, the 50, yes, that.
iReady.
Only the chair.
Oh, can you recognize Ben? I asked him to research that.
Yeah, we're looking at that. I was in contact with David both today. We don't have a good sense of why that is. And just to give the background, we're new to iReady. We're still developing our capacity to make sense of that data. But the mid-year results suggest that there hasn't been improvement in reading since the start of the year. Honestly, I don't think that's true. Looking at past MCAS results, students in 7th and 8th grade do improve their reading. So we're trying to get at why that is. I had a meeting with the company that makes the assessment to see if they had any insights. They suggested, well, maybe the students weren't given as much time in the mid-year exam. We don't think that's the case. I heard from the school today that they were given just as much time. The testing conditions didn't change. So it's still a little bit of a mystery, something we're looking into. Principal Ruscio was going to talk with some of his teachers today. So that's one that we're following very closely. It doesn't match what we know about that school and about English instruction at that school, where we've typically gotten some okay results. So it's still a bit of a mystery. Yeah.
And I keep saying the ECRI, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that's the enhanced core reading instruction that we have the Literacy for Health coming in to provide training on that for best practices, instructional practices in the early elementary. So that's that. And certainly I don't want to short anybody out. I can put this again on next week's if you want to look at everything. If you didn't have a chance, feel free. I think what I would just like to, let me just see if it's this one. And I can't really present. I guess what I would, I guess what I would like, if you ever have a moment to take a minute, is kind of look at the Think SRSD evidence that's in there. This has really taken off, and students are really providing some feedback about, I feel like I'm a better writer. I saw a teacher the other day, she was like, I can't believe the difference in my students. No, those may be pockets, we're hoping they're not, but I like to thank the staff and administrators. They have embraced it. I think it's been our initiative from the beginning of the year. If you go down to goal 2, this was when the administrators attended the instructional leadership in August, and we wanted to put a plan together. After we left that 3-day conference, we were kind of left on our own to put it together. But what I'm really happy about is that this goal and the goal above and the goal below is all going to come together with what we're working on. So what I mean by that is, you know, the opening day convocation, it was the power of the pencil, which we all talked about, the writing and stuff like that. And we identified at our leadership training that we wanted to have a certain number of items that we believed administrators, what needs to be in each of the classrooms. So for example, let me just do that. We believed after attending this workshop that we have to have high expectations in every classroom. Absolutely. We have to have a strong sense of belonging. We have to have consistent grade level materials. Doing an internal assessment, we probably could say that we thought we were trying to help by using lower level materials, but we really should use the materials at hand and provide scaffolding and periodic supports so that they have the same expectation. And we wanted to empower everybody with their writing story, which I talked about quite a bit. So we have done that. So in doing this, we had our November 2025 PD, where we did some, we applied an equity lens and did some collaborative work around what is high expectations. What do you think high expectations are in your classroom? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? So we took all of that information, and if you click on high expectations, you will see the summary of what we received from teachers. We are currently having conversations. I believe we identified maybe halfway through of what we as administrators believe need to be in every classroom. No matter what classroom you walk in, you're going to find these things. And, you know, we gave some examples down below. I just provided some. We talked about clearly posting and articulating language objectives. Some do it now, some don't do it, some do it better, some do it great. We know, okay, continue this practice, but we're going to strengthen it. We want to create a classroom where all are respected. We know your names. We know what your interests are. We want to have established predictable routines. We know that's happening. And then the scaffolding. Regularly check for understanding. And as time goes on and we build this plan, you will have all of this data in one spot. But how this comes around to all of this, we were identified through special education and DESE that we needed to take part in needs assistance because of our special ed cohort and numbers. In doing so, we learned that some of the students were coded wrong, so we fixed that. And then we have to do an analysis of why we believe special ed students aren't making the progress they're making. And we all agree that it's great, but we want this for all students. We want this for L students, we want this for current students, and what can we do to do all that? So Becky, Sean, and Ben were able to go to the first webinar. That was at a hotel. And then Sean left to go to Washington DC, and I had to go fill in his spot, and I was in the basement of a church. That was about 50 degrees. But Ben and I scoped out the temperature, and we turned the temperature up to there. And we have to identify our goals. We have to identify root causes. We have to identify the barriers to those. We have to come up with action steps for all of this. This is a 2-year process, right? 2 years, Ben? 2 years process. But we are going to have a lot of this information that we're generating from our high expectations. For example, one of our root cause is lack of high expectation. So we have to kind of say, well, what does that look like in the classroom? How do we enforce it? What are the barriers? And how do we have action steps to do that? The other one was something around MTSS, tiered instruction. The other was more around high quality instructional material, which we feel is going to bring this loop all together. So we've been working with DESE regarding that. I believe we have something due in March 20th, that we have to do that. So when I was thinking about all of this plan that we're going to present to you for this is actually going to go correlate to the plan that we're submitting to DESE. And then the data that we're going to be using is going to be up at number 1, is going to support those things. So,
Brian, can you tell us why did the state flag special ed? I know they flagged a lot of schools.
yeah, so Ben,
They developed a new rubric for identifying districts in which the special education students, the students on IEPs, were not making progress to the degree that they expected and wanted. I think the rubric was new just last year. Under the new rubric, we fell into this category. It's not to make excuses, but we missed it by like a point. So we were on the borderline, but we were cited as needing assistance and needing to go through this process. The biggest factor was MCAS scores. They have benchmarks that they want us to hit with, where they'll say like, well, 23% of your students on IEPs should be at grade level for math or reading or something like that. We didn't hit those metrics. Just so you know, and it doesn't come as a surprise, we have calculated what we think their goals will be for this coming year. I think we're probably going to miss it again by a point. That's not too surprising. We haven't had a chance to put in place some of the changes that we think will address this. But it mostly comes down to MCAS scores. We lost a point or two related to some students being miscoded. We think that that's under control, but mostly it has to do with MCAS scores, specifically of students on IEPs.
And is it like a 3-year running, or is it a 1-year
No,
snapshot?
it's a new rubric, and it was a one year. And, so that was it was actually based on our 2024 scores
Yeah.
that we were categorized. So we have the 2025 scores, and we can tell that most likely, we're pretty confident that we're gonna stay in this status of needs assistance. The good news is we don't need a ton of improvement to get out of this status, because we were sort of borderline. But yeah, we certainly have some work to do.
and I think too, going back to what Ben said about MCAS, we are hoping that our focus on this writing and the SRSD in giving, which it's not necessarily a program, it's a method. And it really starts by encouraging students to say, I can do this. I can jump in the pool. I can jump into this writing assignment, and I can do what I need to do to write this. Will help in MCAS, and not that MCAS is the only tool, but we lose a lot of points on our open response writing. And it would be nice if we saw some of this correlation going over to the MCAS as well. I was just looking for something, hold on, I think it's here. You know, in the evidence that you will see acronyms like POWER. You know, so you'll start to see the charts in the classroom. Plan, organize, write, edit, revise. You know, kindergarten, POWER. Plan, organize, write. I can do this. We're not getting into edit or revision just yet. Let's just get our things. There's other things, tied, topic, important details, explanation, and ending. So you will see a lot of those when you go into each of the classrooms now of what's expected in the writing. There's also a thing about gist, which is just, what's the gist in your story? Tell us the important parts. You know, start with that. So, and you will see at the high school that they're taking this, because we do feel that it's kind of elementary, middle school. They're taking what they do and they're making the correlation. So when they go to Chestnut, to Javish, to the high school, the terminology may change a little bit, but the expectation is still there. That brings us back to high expectations for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's great.
So this one, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's a little, we're feeling a little, I don't wanna say defeated. We're just reassessing here. So, you know, this is our climate survey. You know, we certainly have done the SABRs. I had to write it down because I forgot. The social, academic, and emotional behavior risk screener. You know, we're finding some inconsistencies with it. You know, some
I'm sorry, is it My Sabers or Sabers?
SABRs.
Both.
You do both.
My Saver is 3 up.
Got it.
You know,
Saver is K2.
Okay.
we have the vocal data too, you know, that we talked about. I put that in here. But our conversations have been, is this really the data we want? Is this really providing us sufficient information that we can use? We know that the vocal isn't going away anyway. We're going to continue to look at that. But we're not convinced that they provide us sufficient depth to support high-level data-informed decision-making. We're just not there yet. I know that we talked a little bit about the panorama thing, and we're kind of exploring more. Sean's working on that now about what's out there, what can we benefit from. I think, Jake, you had once said this way back when too, is, you know, our kids happy in school. You know, we want to know that. We want to know our kids happy. You know, is there a trusted adult? And I know Chris does a lot of our internal assessments that we have there. So we're really kind of saying to ourselves here, where do we go with this? We're going to continue to finish up with the SABRs and the vocal. But I think you will probably hear some recommendations from us about moving forward with something different next year. Now I want to be clear, I'm not saying we're not going to do the vocal, because the vocal is part of the MCAT. I'm just saying, what can we take from there, and then what can we use to kind of drive the climate a little better?
So when it comes to Sabers, my understanding is that kids in the bottom third percentile, which is a very low percentile, are high-risk kids for social, emotional, anxiety, depression. Did you find that kids on Sabers for Belchertown, like, were there more kids in that bottom third percentile as a school than nationally? Were you surprised by those results? Is that what this is coming from? Or did you feel like the questions only take about 7 minutes and we're not getting the information we really want.
So we don't use it in that way.
Okay.
It is a tier 1 screening tool.
Right.
So as we're looking at not which percentile or which level of like result would indicate additional issues, we're first and foremost looking at is more than, like we said, 20%, more than 20% of the students in this class
Yeah.
experiencing high risk or risk, moderate risk or high risk. And if that is, then it's an instructional issue. And so what are the tier 1 strategies we do there?
Yeah.
There are levels where counselors can look at individual students or otherwise to see like, are these kiddos that I'm working with, are there other interventions that we can do? But our primary goal is to establish tier 1 in classroom responses to large group, small group, or sometimes individual. What are the instructional strategies that we can support? So not saying like, oh, this one may be at further risk for something else. It was part of why we went with this one was because there is no, we don't call crisis after we do savers.
No.
When there were some of them that were like, if kids are responding this way to this assessment, like, you have a problem right now. And so we were like, let's ease into this one, establish, and really trying to build off the MTS, like trying to build up framework at the same time.
Do you use Savers?
Yeah, the kids in the bottom 30 percentile will typically get tier 2 supports, and I was interested to know how many kids were in that high risk category, because nationally 3% are.
Right.
But if 10% of Belchertown students are in that high risk category, that's concerning. It doesn't mean we have necessarily like a tier 1 problem, but it means that we have a higher mental health issue than typical. That's what I was wondering.
That is not how we,
And we can get you some more formalized data with that. I'll put in for next time as well too, or add it, because we did talk about that as well. So we want to get some of that information from the school level.
I
Okay.
think it's a good data point to say even more reason why you might need intervention teachers for their SEL is an intervention as well.
Right. Yeah.
So just, I'm clearly not as familiar with Sabres as you are, but so that I understand based on what you're saying, can you kind of just explain how Sabres fits into that goal?
so the intention, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the intention of this goal is to assess, to evaluate school climate, consistently evaluate climate. What we're saying right now is it doesn't.
Okay. Okay, so it's not a tool that we're using to evaluate climate.
It is a tool we are using, and we're finding that it is not one that evaluates climate.
Okay, okay.
And so we need to explore some other options.
I see. And so as of right now, towards this goal, we're relying on vocal data,
Yes.
Basically, yes.
basically. Okay, and then I feel like we heard a presentation of
Yes.
vocal data, that wasn't that
You got it.
reliable or helpful as well, so, okay, got it.
First part of this goal was to see how those two are existing measures,
I see.
how they do.
Right, and
And-
the conclusion is not so
Yeah,
great.
those are great.
Okay,
But
that's fair.
to Jake's point too, we're gonna get some information so we can put that in there. I feel like we're behind on this goal. I'm just gonna be honest.
Okay.
I feel like this is one of the ones we're behind in, just for a variety of reasons. And then we had a conversation when we were doing all this that we really need to start exploring some other, so we can move forward next year, but yes.
I feel like this is a conversation we've had for a long time.
This has
that
been a
It's a
conversation.
challenge,
Right.
and kind of, yeah, when you have the data, what you do with the data, it's sort of.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
right.
we're struggling with, and Ben and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. Let's do these two tools. We have the data, but what do we do with them? And now we're like, what do we do with them? Because they're not really telling us much. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it seems like there's a lot of interpretation, different ways in vocal. Should you be comparing it year to year? I don't know. I look at Ben sometimes and say, is that a real accurate thing? Is there something that we can get baseline and then, move forward? So that's been our conversation.
I
And with
think
the,
that there are definitely pros and cons to the vocal, but I don't think it tells the whole story or gives us a metric where we can easily evaluate our progress year to year. A tool that did that would be nice.
and ultimately, would the goal be to look student by student or classroom by classroom, grade by grade? Like, what do you think the right sort of focus is?
Honestly, I think we have to start like maybe school by school,
Okay.
to get a sense
Mm-hmm.
and then drill it down. But I'm not too sure yet,
Okay.
just in my thinking, because
Well, if you do school by school, the cohort changes, so.
it does
Yeah,
change.
I mean, so there's a limitation.
You know,
Yeah.
so-
No, it's hard to know. I
Yeah,
agree.
no, you're absolutely right. And do we do it by cohorts? Do we? But I think for me, I'm still struggling what that tool is.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, like Sabres is not a great measure of culture. It's a good measure of mental health. And that's a piece of culture for kids, but it's not the whole picture. And what we've found is you can identify the kid, but mental health is a very difficult animal to solve in school.
Right.
Like, that's often an outside therapy issue.
So you're using it on an individual level?
We do both. We do it tier one, like you mentioned, like, what is the thing that affects 25% or more? That's something we gotta address as a whole
Yeah.
grade. But we also try to flag certain kids within that to say, like, ooh, you're high risk.
Mhm.
You're gonna need not just whatever's happening in the classroom, you're gonna need some individual help, tier two. So that's what we're trying to do, but even still, like, it's extremely difficult to figure out, like, what do you need? And can we provide that
Right.
with the money that we have when you're not special ed? Like,
Mhm.
it's also a financial issue, but we don't even have interventions for reading and math, never mind SEL, so it's like, we don't have any tool to, like, you could know all of the problems
Right.
by using
But
My
you can't
Savers
do
and they read
anything
and
about
you
it.
know all of the problems, but you still can't do anything for that kid who's really struggling until, boom, now he needs an IEP.
Right,
Mm.
right.
Got it.
Do
Yeah.
you find that when you do it, there's more kids needing social support versus academic versus?
So it's cohort E.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word, like certain grades, as they go through, I've seen like, oof, math is low. Reading was very low in the beginning, but we thought that was COVID related.
Mhm.
And now it's more like, could be SEL, could be math, could be SEL, could be math. I haven't figured out why. But like, every grade
Yeah,
is
they
in
have-
high
I mean,
school,
that's
like,
kinda where
everyone
I
assumes
made
like
that
their high
comment,
school
yeah.
class is just like every high school class, but anyone who's
No.
taught knows
Yeah.
that's not the case. Every class that goes through a high school or a middle school has their own characteristics and their own like personality.
Oh, we've definitely heard that.
Yeah, so it's a
Right.
tricky animal, but
Experience
the
with
tools are the
experience.
first step. Now you know how big the problem is, now you gotta figure out what your solution is.
Right,
You need the
right.
tool. You need to figure out the tool first to know what you want to do now.
Okay.
So we'll definitely have some more information for you on that with a plan to come the end of the year moving forward. And the last one was the facilities assessment. So what I can tell you over this, that I've been collaborating with district and building level administrators as well as key stakeholders to collect and analyze both formal and informal data related to facilities usage, enrollment trends, staffing allocation. What I wanted to draw your attention to, we talked a little bit in the other one, but the MSBA school survey report is the entire state. So if you wanted to look at that's fine. If you click on the Belchertown Public Schools, I broke it down, and down at the bottom, I'm just highlighting it here, is Belchertown. And we talked a little bit about this in property and transportation, that, Chestnut Hill got a 1, Cold Spring got a 2, Swift River got a 1, Chambersburg got a 3. And the 3 was because of the roof, the windows, the AC, everything that we kind of knew from doing the MSBA project, the lack of AC, the hazardous materials. So not really surprised about that. But these were the ratings for Belchertown, and we're gonna ask Eric to come back when he's back to talk about it. But he, like I said earlier, and if you were here or not, he did some digging, and basically the rating for Javish Brook is due to the age of the roof, windows, electrical and plumbing system, lack of AC, and hazardous materials.
But lack of AC, Swift River is still at 1, and they don't have AC.
Yeah.
Hazardous materials being.
Asbestos.
That's-
So, and if you look in the other link, I gave you the whole report in case you wanted some details, but we're going to use this as part of our assessment of the facilities. So I added that into the evaluation. I also reached out to, and we have to finish it up, PARs. I got some more information on PARs, so I'm going to bring it back to the committee on that. We also have been doing some, the reorganization of pre-K to 8. We had to do some of our internal assessments. I added operational efficiency there, the projected enrollment, all of that, you've heard before. I continue to have those listening sessions. I put that information there. And, this is all going to be useful. It has been useful in the transition to making the transition from Cold Springs to Swift River and Javish and all that. I think this approach and sharing these information is allowing this to be a collaborative approach, and we're being very transparent on what information we're using to make some of these decisions. So I'm hoping that when, people see this and we start posting this thing, that we are taking the feedback, we are using it, it's guiding some of our planning efforts. It doesn't mean everything we hear we can do or gonna do, but at least it's, student-centered in the implementation process. So, going back to PARs for a minute, I got some information about what Jake has shared and had an in-depth conversation. They're willing to come to meet with the board as well. And, there's pros and cons to that. They could do an evaluation that Jake has spoke about before, but they're willing to come out to see staffing-wise if it's something. There is a cost to the district because we have to put in towards retirement or making deals for people to leave early and things of that nature.
That's for the assessment, or if
For the
we were to carry it out?
If we were to carry it out, And that's where we are with that one. I can see this goal almost maybe in a continuation in another school year of, okay, now let's do an analysis of central office or whatever, you know what I'm saying? We just have to have some conversation of where it goes. So the schools are going to come back, they're going to present their mid-year assessments. You'll see some of the data you saw here and there. Mine was overview of the district, they'll have school-based. And by the end of the school year, you will have the plan, hopefully, or a draft plan for what we're submitting to DESE. And then you'll have our expectations and all of that, if that makes sense. And if you look at it and you have a question, shoot me an email. I know it's a lot. I never really know how to go through it because it's a lot. Some of these things you've seen before. We continue to use some evidence.
I really like the embedded links
Okay.
and being able to look and see the
Okay,
evidence that way.
good. Remember, I didn't do that my first year, and I gave you like so many attachments, and so, okay, no, I appreciate that. And you know, there will be more embedded links for the final, and you kind of know that, and, you know, more final projects and stuff like that,
I feel like it's easier to follow.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. No, I like the format.
And some of it's repetitive, but we believe it's something that supports the goal. And we've been trying to put a lot into, and then I'll be quiet, I promise. The PD agendas and the early release, we're putting exactly what goal it meets, where, what the product is, and what's this, so when you review that, you have all that together. Any questions? And I'll do the final one in June, and then,
There's just one kind of question strikes me. When it comes to the building culture assessment, is there anything asking staff about how they're, is there anything involving that?
no, that's what we talked
Is
about.
that purposeful by design?
Oh, wait, or do we have a tool that does that?
Was that part of your conversation? Was it included, omitted?
It's part of the goal.
Yes.
We want to include, there's an entirely, that goal was divided among students and staff.
Yeah.
So 2 pieces to it.
Do you have a tool in mind?
Nope,
No, still looking.
yeah. I meet tomorrow, I think, with a group that's gonna help us dig through the,
And I think it's gonna cost us some money to do it. I think in the long run, it may be worth it, so we can have the information we're looking for and able to do some data analysis. I mean, I could be selling myself short here, but I just feel like after COVID, after the budget, after this reorganization, we're like really getting to the heart of things, instruction and data and making decisions and stuff like that. So we spend a lot of time meeting, you know, a month on dissecting this information, having conversations, making sure we're all talking the same language, make sure we're all reading the same reports correctly. And it's interesting when you put 9 people in the room and they have to give an analysis of their data, you know, so. But I think it's been a good thing. Matt gets very excited when we, he's like, data.
All right, are we good with that? So, all right. Moving on to MSBA school survey. That's what we talked about.
That was that, yeah. Eric was gonna do that, but.
So if I read it correctly, in 2016, Jabesh got a 1. Is that true? I started looking at 2016.
Well, 16, that was what, 10 years ago? Maybe,
Okay. Okay. I feel like it's always been nice.
maybe yes, maybe no.
All right, school choice update. It's just now occurred to me, that's probably why Ben's here, and I apologize.
No.
Okay.
Ben, are you here for that?
I'm just here because it's the place to be on a Tuesday.
That's right.
Seriously.
So in your folder, I just, you know, after the January, the new year, I'd like to give you an update on school choice update. And as you have your little cheat sheet in front of you, current school choice seats, as you can see. And then the seats that we opened up in 25, 26. And then school choice seats still open. So we still have 7 open in 7th grade, 7 in 8th, 1 in 9th, 3 and 10, totaling 18 seats still open. We opened up 32. And we have a total of 145 current school choice seats. So I'd just like to share that information with you. Give you an update.
So it's 14 total that came, right? Am I reading it right?
I'm going to do quick math.
18. Oh, no, sorry.
3, 6.
Yeah, you're right, 14.
And we had 12 leave, right? If I remember right, 12 left.
I believe,
12
Ben,
graduated.
12 left, 12 left
graduated?
last year.
I don't know, that sounds like it could be, it's plausible.
Just getting at, like, did we replenish the number that we were concerned
So-
about graduating?
So I can tell you that last year we hit our peak as far as school choice seats filled was concerned. It was about 160.
Yeah.
We had been around 130 for many years, so it jumped up to 160. And then we opened fewer seats, and we announced a little later, and that fell back towards 130. And I think we had, Heather would know better than I would, but I think we had some latecomers, possibly even who started after the start of the year. So we're up at 145, somewhere between where we've historically been over the last few years, 130, 132, and that real peak where we hit briefly 160.
We had 13 seniors that left us last
13,
year.
okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Not bad, Jake, you remembered.
thank you.
Do we lose any school choice kids, like younger grades that then leave? They go back to their home district or somewhere else?
So school choice, kindergarten never. They don't, I don't think, I've never seen a kindergarten family that have accepted spots and left. We have students that have accepted seats but then move to town, so then they become residents. But that's.
Like, I didn't know if once they're eligible, they'd go to, the performing arts school or.
We've had some students that have done that, but like, there's not, there's not a lot. I mean, some leave us to go do online school, but in their district, but that's, or they get outplaced.
And just like residential students who live here in town, sometimes the families are out of state
Yeah.
or something. So we do have some who are here as school choice students and they leave for whatever reason. In general, Belchertown doesn't have a high churn rate from resident or school choice, I think. We tend to get students and keep them. That seems to be the pattern here.
Okay. Okay, just want to finish
Yeah,
this.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I looked at the time.
Okay. Any other questions about school choice? All right. At what point do you think we will be looking at school choice for next year? 'Cause people are already asking.
I think we gotta finalize the numbers. We gotta see what the kindergarten enrollment is. I'll probably be voted down, but I believe if we have low kindergarten numbers, we should open one per class there, maybe 6, but, I think we get them in there. I think we have to talk about what is the goal, our goal of school choice and funding and operational costs. But to answer your question, we will probably be ready in the middle, end of March.
Okay, perfect.
Could we have information about like how many kids move after kindergarten, just on a typical basis, so we can factor that into our decision?
Specifically school choice students who are move-outs?
No, like, if we base it off of kindergarten, because we hold on to them, I'm wondering how many people move to town first, second, third grade and expand that class size on an average basis? Like, how much bigger does
Right.
first grade get? How much bigger does
Yeah.
third grade get as we?
I can work that up. I'll
Thank you.
write myself a note, sure.
And I only say kindergarten because it seems like it's been the lowest classes for a while, And people may feel differently, but you only put one kid in, the class, it's not going to. And then it saves some.
I mean, for the years we did one kid per kindergarten, it seemed manageable. Like,
Because I'll be honest with you, we are never gonna fill 10,
Yeah, and we know we
10,
open them
five,
knowing
five.
there's space, but
yeah.
like it's the younger grades we can fill.
Graduated 13. I don't think you needed to. Graduate 13, you got close to fair.
Right.
You hit your number.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna move on to our cell phone policy. Jake, do you wanna start this?
Sure, with Mika not here, do you want me just to read the policy and save the discussion for next time, or do you want me to do some prepared remarks and read it?
I feel like we've read it.
Is this first reading or second reading?
This is
Because
first reading.
Okay. So meaning we vote next time.
Yeah.
We could vote next time. If this goes like other districts, I'm feeling a lot of people are gonna wanna reach out to us, one way or the other. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to vote next time.
I see.
This is first reading.
Meaning we're not voting today.
We are not voting.
Okay.
I thought it was just to read it, and since it's a
Go
bigger
for it.
issue, let me be here for a longer conversation.
Okay, so can we ask questions this time?
Well, we can
Now
do
we're
whatever.
I'm
here.
not opposed to you asking questions. Like,
Okay.
I have questions, I have thoughts, but, yeah,
Oh, just read it for now,
yeah, go ahead.
and so just verbatim. Is that how we do this?
Yes.
Okay, mobile phone free
I think
policy.
that, we don't necessarily do it like this because we all have copies of it.
Yeah.
But I think that people are gonna be concerned about this and looking at it. and-
Is anybody online?
No, but it's gonna be recorded.
No,
That's why this man is there.
I'll feed it into
And
the
you
I
know
just
what?
asked a question.
So, the language says a phone-free school has a first bell to last bell policy that requires all personal electronic devices, cell phones, smartwatches, earbuds, AirPods, fitness trackers, Bluetooth connected headphones, etc., are turned off, securely locked away, and inaccessible for the entire school day. A school shall require documentation to support exemptions. The exemption is specific to the needs only and still prohibit the use for any other purposes. A student has a medical necessity as determined by a healthcare professional requiring the use of a cell phone to manage their condition. The cell phone must be used exclusively for that purpose. When the possession or use of a personal electronic communication device is required by a student's individual education plan or Section 504 accommodations plan. Cell phone storage. Cell phone and electronic devices must be turned off and kept in the student's locker, lockbox, or any other location deemed appropriate by administration. Consequences: violations of this policy will be subject to progressive discipline. Multiple violations of the policy may result in further disciplinary action, including the loss of the privilege to possess cell phones and electronic devices at school. Students may use cell phones and electronic devices before or after school hours and at after-school sports activities. Enforcement: the policy must be strictly enforced by all administration and staff school-wide. Parent, guardian, student communication. If parent, guardian, student needs to communicate during the school day, a phone will be available in the main office or other designated area by the school. This policy will take effect for the 2026-2027 school year and will apply to all pre-K to 8 students in Belchertown Public Schools. The cell phone policy for Belchertown High School will continue to follow guidelines outlined in the student handbook.
So thoughts, anything? I know you gave some documents in the drive.
So I got my reasoning as to why, and I can hold that while people do their own individual research and come to their own conclusions, or I can share what I prepared for today. It's up to you. I know the meeting's long and we have another one after this, so whenever the conversation is supposed to happen, we'll do it.
The other one can't start till 7:45, so we've got nothing better to do than to talk.
Okay, I'll read what I prepared. So I believe in a bell-to-bell cell phone policy. As a dad and assistant principal, I've been concerned about the impact that cell phones and social media have had on students for years. The impact of these devices and platforms is something I've witnessed firsthand in my role as an assistant principal in another district. And at times that impact has been really heartbreaking to watch. Families who have serious concerns about cell phones and social media find themselves stuck. Researchers in the field call it the collective action trap. Basically, if your kid's friends have a phone, then in order to be included, your kid needs to have one. Families are forced to choose between isolation and handing their child something they have serious concerns about. Roughly between 2010 and 2015, when front-facing cameras, texting, and video chat really took off, something big changed. The social lives of American adolescents moved online. This was the first generation to go through puberty with the entire internet in their pocket. In my opinion, the data shows that as a result, kids are more anxious, depressed, they're more likely to self-harm, they're more likely to die by suicide than any other generation before them. Smartphones and social media are simply too powerful for what most kids are ready to handle. They just have not developed the executive function, the self-control to address that. It's not a criticism of parents or guardians, it's the reality of raising kids in a world that's changed faster than any of us can adapt to. In May of 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General released an advisory on social media and the youth mental health. I agree with his report. There is insufficient evidence that social media is safe for kids. As a result, he recommended a safety-first approach. We should approach social media and cell phones use like we do vehicular safety and food safety and toy safety and pharmaceuticals. We should be sure they're safe before a potentially dangerous technology is allowed in school. So at this point, we don't know if they're safe, and in fact, there's mounting evidence that they are not. As always is the case, parents have every right to do what they feel is most appropriate when students are not in school. It's my hope that the work we do on this issue will help raise awareness about the potential dangers of these devices and platforms. Luckily, we've already approved this in practice at the middle school. JBISH is a leader in the space. If you review the policies at our other schools, you'll find we don't have much alignment. What this policy will do is align them with what I believe is the best practice and what we're doing at JBISH. In order to ensure that families and students understand why this policy is being discussed, I want to address the impacts as I see them. First, these platforms are addictive, and they were purposely engineered to addict kids and adults. There's a lawsuit right now called case number JCCP5255, and Mark Zuckerberg is currently on trial for creating an addictive technology. I won't get into the lawsuit, but it's big, and it may change the way the entire social media landscape looks for kids. 2, I think they're known to cause classroom distractions. 3, they negatively impact academic performance, mental health, and executive function, and they can create safety issues during an emergency. Adopting a phone-free policy is one of the most impactful things that we can take to enhance student educational outcomes. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Nationwide feedback from teachers and parents and students in phone-free schools has been positive. Off and away policies are ineffective. Policies that only limit phone use during class time often fall short for younger grades because it only addresses academic outcomes, whereas all-day policies promote the success of the child. It encourages real connections at lunch and in the hallway. So as a concluding, as a concerned parent, I spoke in greater detail about this on May 6, 2025 at that table. And I would encourage anyone interested in more information to watch that video of the school committee meeting. This is something I've been concerned about for years. I've been talking to the Belchertown Director of Teaching and Learning, John Fortin, since August of 2024. I've presented this information at the district where I work multiple times. I emailed at the school. I've emailed you guys in February of 2025 in hopes of our schools addressing this issue. I ran for school committee in hopes that I could help ensure that we do something about this. So we've utilized an inclusive process where the personnel and policy subcommittees receive feedback from school administrators on June 10th of 2025. The personnel and policy subcommittee discussed sharing the May 6th presentation with all staff at an October 14th, 2025 meeting. On November 18th, that presentation was shared with staff, and again, we got feedback. The personnel and policy subcommittee met again on February 10th, 2026 to review additional feedback from school administrators and have incorporated that feedback into the present policy. Cell phones move the lives of kids online. In my opinion, it has made more harm than good. And so I think we should take the advice of a U.S. Surgeon General report and take a safety-first stance. There's insufficient evidence that social media is safe. And I believe our students would benefit from a bell-to-bell ban.
Thoughts from the committee?
So I mean, I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of questions. But one thing I guess I just would like to point out, I heard you say social media a lot, and I don't disagree with what you're saying about social media, but this isn't a policy about social media. This is a policy about phones. And so like in some of the research I did, and I think I shared with the committee, the only peer-reviewed study that I could find that compared schools with restrictive phone policies to schools with permissive phone policies. And the finding was that it didn't change how much time students were on phones, it just shifted when they were on phones. So instead of having some time on phones during school, they had some time, more time on phones later in the day. And so while I don't disagree with you, I think we really do have to focus on phones and not social media? Because social media is an issue, and you're right, there is a lawsuit, and there's a lot of evidence there, but we're talking about phones in schools. And so I just want to make sure we focus on that. And so my other question is sort of what's happening at the state, if anybody knows, and how do our administrators, what has been the response from administrators to the proposal? Because I did notice at the bottom of this proposed policy, doesn't it say, this does not, am I reading this right?
This applies to pre-K through 8.
Right. So how does that fit into this?
I don't know what's going on at the legislation.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know that. What I can tell you is when we talked about this as administrators, there was, pros and cons. What problem were we trying to fix? And, well, looking at this, we kind of do this anyway. So the elementary and, I'm going to say Swift River and Chestnut Hill, they don't have a lot of phone issue problems, You put them away, you got to put them in your locker, in your book bag, whatever it may be. The high school was using the caddies, and the administrator said, some teachers do it better, some teachers aren't as good with it. And then Tom was also doing it where, it was out of sight. I think the important thing at the high school is they can use them in the hallway, they can use them at lunch and stuff like that. So when we talked about this, it wasn't that people were opposed to it. People were like, we kind of do this anyway. This is just kind of tightening it up. I think the administrators wanted to have some say in whether it was a student locker, a lockbox, or another thing. Because if we got lockbox, for example, and Jake was leaving for the day, he has to go into Amy's classroom, get his phone, disturb the class, and then go back out. So people were saying, well, why don't we go back to lockers, put the phones in lockers, it's the student's responsibility. We encourage them not to go there during the hallway or the lunch, you just didn't have them. So people weren't opposed to this at all, and honestly would support something of this nature because the lower grades don't really see it as a huge issue right now. That doesn't mean it won't become that. And the other thing was that in one of the policies, and I know the committee had taken the feedback from the administrators, it was more specific on the consequences. And they wanted to be a little general, let us make our decisions based on the situation and go from there. Right? I mean, there was nothing that people strongly opposed. There was nothing that people said, we kind of do it already.
So the feedback I've gotten from a couple of JVISH families is that it's not enforced well at the school. So some teachers do it, some don't.
That would be true.
From the office, it seemed to be enforced. So like a kid texted mom, like, I forgot this at home. Can you bring it to me? So the mom brought it to the school, and the school said, well, she's getting detention because she shouldn't have had her phone to text you. So there was enforcement in that side, but not necessarily from the letter. Some kids were either sneaking their phones and then like going to the bathroom to use them, or turning in an old phone or like a not working phone to keep a phone. And so there was one person I talked to, and she's like, well, what's the point? You should have done this 10 years ago. There's no point now. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And she kind of came around and was like, yeah, no, like it could be done. But I think the big concern is following up on, like, what are we going to do if teachers aren't enforcing this? Like,
That's a management problem.
right.
Yeah,
But then what's the point of all this if we can't?
So I totally agree, it's a management issue. And I think if the policy's in place, we have to do our due diligence to enforce it. And, you know, that may be as simple as saying, Heidi, why isn't your phone put away in the locker?
That was good to
You know, we are using the lockers here at the school, why isn't it in there? Or you called your mother in the bathroom, called the nurse, your mom's at the front door, where they're gonna have to be able to do that. And eventually, there's gonna have to be a consequence for that if it's a repeat offender. But I think that you would see the high school, and, you know, 6th grade, 5th grade, say, yeah, they shouldn't be on them. You're in school. They should be away. If there's an emergency, you contact the office, the parents to the office. So I think it's like with any policy that we put in place, we have to do our best to enforce it. I think people are on board to enforce it.
So can I ask why the high school was excluded from the policy?
I don't want to speak for Mika, but I think she could certainly ask this question again, but she pointed out high schoolers are in a special place. Some of them have jobs, some of them have different requirements. They're getting older. A lot of the research says around 16 they should start to have cell phones. They have the beginnings of those skills to manage that stuff. And so we thought that it made sense, since it was happening at Jabish, to basically say, you know, let's sound the alarm for everyone, not sound the alarm, let's communicate to everybody below 8th grade, this is a rule, and we want you to know about it. As you get older, maturity kicks in, and the rules should become more flexible based on the experts working with that age group.
I think one of the challenges will be the watches. You know, what are we going to be taking watches away from people?
Even kids have like, some of my Girl Scouts have these little like keychains that only let them communicate with their parents.
So,
Like, I mean, the technology is amazing. Like,
I guess, I mean, sort of like my gut feeling, I can't imagine that this is much a big problem at Swift River and Chestnut Hill. So
it's not huge.
the focus really is on Jabish then, in terms of how this is managed. And I don't know, kind of hearing your feedback, it just makes me wonder, like, I don't know, are they able to manage it, and are we kind of overstepping and putting this in place, or does it need to be in place? I guess I just don't fully understand what's changing by implementing this.
Well, I think what's changing is, you know, there would be a written policy, and we as administrators would be really focusing on, you're not gonna have your phone during the hallways, you're not gonna have it at lunch, you're gonna put it in that lockbox or the locker or whatever, and you're not gonna be able to go there till the end of the day, right? So I think in our conversations with administrators, exactly what you said, Magda and Jen said, you know, we have our issues, but they're not huge. So for us to do something like this isn't going to be huge. And then we were talking about Jabish, and then the high school came up too. And that's when we said, you know, it'd be great if we as administrators didn't have the ownership of the phone. Let's go back to using lockers, let them put it in their locker. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to monitor whether they're going to the lockers, will they have it, stuff like that. Listen, some people are probably gonna sneak it out and we're not even gonna know, but I think we have to bring that.
I think what it does is it aligns all the schools, and it communicates to parents something that may not be on their radar in 3rd grade. And what we're saying is, it probably should be. We want you to be paying attention to this, so that you might slow down on when you hand off that hand-me-down phone. because you can't go to school anyways. And it gives that extra like tool to that parent who's like, I don't really want to give this to you, but I also don't want you to be isolated from your friends. But if the whole cohort knows, hey, the school said this is not such a great idea in school, maybe a lot more parents don't give that handout. Because that's typically what happens, is the old phone, you know, you get your old
Yeah.
phone, and you're like, I'm gonna give it to my kid, they like to play games, and in third grade, that's fine. But by sixth grade, it becomes this very hard habit to break, and their brain's just not ready yet.
And then there's the fifth graders who are going home alone now for the first time. And their parents are giving it them to them to track them, so they know like when they get home and things like that.
And one of the things that Brian wanted included was, before the bell, after the bell, that's your purview parent. So that's included in it, but,
Do we think this is gonna help, like Ruby talked about the study, that this just keeps them off the phone during the day, but they use it more later?
well, so I agreed with that study. What it said, on page 5, they defined like a cell phone ban, and it meant having it in your backpack. Like, that's not a ban. Any kid who has it in the backpack has it in their front pocket, so of course it's not gonna work. That's kind of what I've been saying this whole time, is that if the phone is on your body, it's gonna distract you, and it's going to be disruptive. It's on page 5.
Right, no, I mean like, talking about, they use them the same amount of time, just not in school hours
Oh,
now.
I don't know, I can't speak to
But that's
that.
out of our purview, right? Like, we're talking about in class.
That is, but like, we're doing this to limit their cell phone use, but it's not gonna do it. Like, that's what I'm concerned with, like.
Ish.
I mean, I think we have to, like, I appreciate your statement, and like I said, like, you said a lot about social media. We have to be clear about what we can and can't control. So we could put a policy in place to restrict cell phone use during the day, but we can't necessarily make that leap to say, you know, we hope X, Y, and Z will be a result of that, but we don't know that it will be.
True. But, I mean, I look at it like cigarettes.
It discourages use, right? It discourages that earlier use, potentially.
Potentially.
Like having somebody who's at that age right now and has some friends who have phones, and we're not going to do that.
Mhm.
Like having a policy, bringing the kids through that too, like having to be more just
As
a
they
regulated
experience
policy,
it now.
it'll change the culture a little bit, hopefully.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not gonna keep them off after school, but it helps to focus during school, right?
Not
The
every
reason-
fifth grader will want one.
Right, and the reason you're here is to be in class and not be disruptive,
Mm.
right? So like, hopefully they'll cut down on that. Like, that's
Yes,
my
and if
thought
they're
on
not
that.
seeing it in someone else's
Yeah,
hands and
maybe
whatnot,
maybe
yeah.
that will be
Feel like
a
that.
great secondary effect, but really, to me, this is, you're in school, you're focusing on school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other thoughts you have?
No, I just think, honestly, if a parent wants them to have a phone, they're gonna have a phone, which is out of our purview. But when they're in school, the phone has to be put away. You know, because some people want it for their kids on the bus, some people want them after school band lessons or whatever, but in school, we're focusing on, you know, and I think during COVID, whether it was right or wrong, we encouraged people to bring technology to school because we weren't sure, and we asked people to use their phones to do certain things, and those days are gone. We gotta, you know, computers, we have computers for everybody, and, you know, the phone goes away. And we save.
So just to kind of piggyback on
Yeah,
that, because
sure.
in the data, the survey that you gave, the data, some of the comments, like there was a theme that, for those that took the survey, that we needed to be a one-to-one district in order for this to go into place. So, but you're saying we do have
We have
technology.
plenty of
Okay, so
technology.
that's not really.
Yeah, that's not.
Okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, next week will be our second meeting. All right, no curriculum, no property and transportation. Am I chair or you the chair?
Property and tree.
I'm
Oh,
not-
oh, so you're trying to think.
I'm the chair? Okay.
Did the whole,
So Swift River Lighting, we talked about doing that, how they did all the rest of the schools. with these lights.
Like a mass aid program.
Yeah, and so, we talked about moving forward with that. And then the MSBA school survey, we talked about, which we heard about with Brian's evaluation. And finance and budget?
So we had discussion of budget transfers, so we do have, I don't know, does everybody have this, the budget transfers or we need to look at? So there was, the finance and, yep, yeah, finance and budget made a motion to bring it to the full committee to move $56,350 from sped tuition to foster DCF transportation.
So are you making that motion?
I am making the motion to the full committee. Sure.
Okay. And, okay, there's a second, any discussion?
So ultimately, what we're trying to do is make sure that a student in DCF custody has a ride. And there's extra money in the sped tuition budget, so we're sliding that money over to cover that cost. That's the why.
Seems to make sense. Anything else?
Yes, the health insurance.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Well, let's do this one first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
Nope.
We didn't vote yet.
Oh, I'm
All
sorry.
in favor, say aye.
Sorry.
Aye.
Perfect, and now let's talk the next one.
So then, in addition to that, Brian made a proposal that we, due to sort of a reopening of enrollment, and we saw some shifting in health insurance costs, and that we, Brian brought forth the proposal that finance and budget moved to the full committee to return $200,000 from health insurance savings to the town. So I am making the motion that we return $200,000 from health insurance savings to the town.
Okay, any discussion?
Just want to highlight, this is an opportunity to tell the town about the things we could do with that money if the town didn't need it. So we give it back, but we mentioned in our conversation those things that Brian had talked about, like intervention. Teachers can be super helpful, but transparency is really important, and I think Brian's instincts were totally on.
I think this could help reduce the deficit for next year, right? Because even if we got those interventions, then we would be at a bigger deficit for next year.
And it might even, the town's gonna do the same thing, my understanding is, they're gonna put somebody in. So it may help the reduction of the 215.
Right.
Or it could help the coming years. But my rationale was that when we had the board meeting, everybody came to the table and offered. We offered 56,000 extra. Finance committee put in 100,000. I just think that it should go back to that.
I'm always going to ring the bell about interventions.
Yes, no, I
You
agree.
are welcome to
I
bring
think
that
that's
I'm going to keep ringing it.
I think that's a great point.
I don't think it hurts to ring it,
Okay.
unless you get a sore arm. All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, perfect.
Oh, and we had a budget update, FY '26 and '27.
Perfect. No Healthy and Safer Schools, no collaborative. Is there any questions from the media? Lou? And I feel like I saw Emily online. Is she still there? Okay. All right, so with that, I'm gonna make a motion, we enter into executive session after I gotta read this, but after a slight recess, because I gotta read. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Part 1, to discuss a complaint or a charge brought against a public officer, employee, superintendent, staff member, or individual. Do you consent, Jake?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Ruby?
Yes.
And I consent. So we are going into executive session, not to open before 7:45. And we'll go next door.
Are we returning?
No, you're not returning to open session. Good. Perfect.
Brian, you have to pack or?